I know that with enforcement, employers who refuse to implement the vaccine rules are subject to fines. But what about employees who refuse to comply with the requirements? Will federal contractors or employees be fired? And is that the recommendation for private sector employees who don't comply?
Well, again, there needs to be rulemaking that will take place as it relates to the OSHA requirements, and that is the one that applies to private sector companies of individuals 100 people and over. We have our own rules in the federal government, which are applied through different statutes. So yes, you're right. There would be counseling. We are certainly going to take every step to convey the safety and the efficacy of these vaccines to federal employees. But certainly, vaccination is required for contractors and employees, and the president was pretty clear about that yesterday.
So ultimately, people could get fired.
Correct.
And then on another topic, rapid testing. In Europe, rapid tests are cheap, pretty widely available. In the U.S., it still can be expensive and hard to find them. Why is that, and why hasn't the administration been able to address some of those issues before this latest plan rolled out?
Well, I would say we just started to address some of those big issues yesterday because we recognized, as you said, that this was a hindrance for many people. Now, we did take steps to include funding for testing in the American Rescue Plan that has been applied in schools and communities across the country. But what we've seen is an increased interest in rapid tests and at-home tests, and we're being responsive to that as well. And this kind of goes back to the comments of Jerome Adams. I mean, testing is also a component that probably we don't talk about enough, or the world doesn't talk about enough, because it is important and it's a way to make sure people are protected. We know the demand for rapid tests has more than doubled in recent weeks, and so we're also being responsive to that. So it's nearly $2 billion investment in rapid at-home tests, 280 million tests at home. We're also going to send 25 million free at-home rapid tests to the 1,400 community health centers, and top retailers are going to be selling them. So we tried to take a number of steps, bold steps from the federal government and working with the private sector to make them more rapidly available. Go ahead.
Jen, what does the White House say to those businesses? Some business groups are expressing this concern that this requirement that they either have their employees be vaccinated or that they be tested is ultimately a burden on the businesses. So what does the White House say about that burden? Because it's certainly a costly liability, some say.
Well, the vaccines are free and available to everyone in the country, so that shouldn't be costly or available.
Or given an opt-out. So in other words, if they say they want to do the weekly tests, you couldn't say earlier who would pay for that test. Businesses are saying, how do we get these tests to our employees? What if our employees don't want to pay for it themselves? Do we have to pay for it? What does that cost us at the end of the day, given that they have the right to opt out?
They have to make that decision themselves. It's certainly more cost-effective to require vaccines. They may not decide to do that. That's up to them to decide to do.
So ultimately the burden's on that business to make that decision or just swallow the cost.
Correct. Most of these businesses can absolutely afford it. And what we're talking about here is saving people's lives and protecting them. I'd also say there are a number of companies that have already applied this, have already put requirements in place. It makes for safer workplaces. It makes people want to come back to the workplace. It makes for healthier and happier employees who know that they are safe when they go to work, and that's a cost as well.
Obviously, testing is cheaper for a place like United. They can afford it more easily than a business that's only 100 people big. That's why I asked.
I understand, but again, vaccines, free, available everywhere in the country. Requiring that is free and shouldn't cost businesses any money.
Understood.